We got a bidet! Hey everybody, and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we got the Star Wars news back here for you. We were delayed a week because we were in Vegas, so we're glad to dish out some Star Wars news for you today. There's actually some big stuff that happened while we were in Vegas, so we'll cover that. Just a quick reminder, not this week, but the following week is Star Wars Celebration. So that means this next week, we will be covering our most anticipated panels for Star Wars Celebration. So our next discussion video, we'll be talking about what we're most excited about. And then the ones after that will be actually covering, reacting, and discussing what we see at Star Wars Celebration. So stay tuned for that. Turn on your notifications, that way you are notified when they drop. But let's go ahead and get into the Star Wars news. Probably one of the biggest, I don't know if it's the biggest, but one of the biggest that came out in the past 3 weeks was we got another Kenobi trailer. I woke up and we were in Vegas just checking my Facebook and YouTube notifications, and I was really happy to see that actually popped up on Star Wars Day, May 4th. We did get a handful of things that were new in this trailer. The biggest one for me that I really wanted to see from the first trailer was actually seeing Vader. We didn't see like the whole thing, but we did see him being put together, which was super neat. There's a couple of things with that I didn't really know until I watched it and then listened to some other podcasts. So for instance, Star Wars Theory is one that I listened to. In that trailer, we see basically almost like spikes going into Vader's suit, and it actually protrudes into his body. So he actually feels that pain whenever he's put together with those certain pieces. But what was your guys' reactions to the trailer? Did it seem more exciting than the last one? Did it add much for it to you? What are your thoughts?
Just speaking purely personally, I'm more of a less is more type person when it comes to marketing. So I think while I ultimately preferred the first trailer over this one, I still really enjoyed this trailer, and it makes sense to put, like, the first one was more of like a teaser, kind of give you a taste, and then this one, has a little bit more of the story details and all that stuff, what's unique to this show, which makes total sense that they would do a trailer like that. So nothing against Disney or anything like that. I still enjoyed it. It was nice to hear some dialogue. Sassy Owen was the highlight of that, and all the memes are just hilarious to me. So I enjoyed it, and I'm still just as excited to see it. And yeah, all good.
To be fair, the Sassy Owen thing, like, that's legit. Like, that definitely
for sure
called for, and I feel like it really adds to A New Hope when he's trying to tell Luke, like, oh, Ben Kenobi, he's dead. Like, he just doesn't want him to know about him. So I really like that. What do you think?
I thought it was interesting. To be honest, I watched it for the first time today. I didn't realize it was released back then. Somebody didn't tell me.
I did tell you. You just weren't listening.
Anyway, I thought it was neat. It definitely makes me really excited to see the show, and it brought up a couple of questions for me. One of them being, I noticed, and I apologize, I don't know what character it was, but one of the ones where they have the lightsaber with the ring around it, and that was instead of like being on like their belt loop, it was on their back, like between their shoulder blades. So I thought that was kind of something weird or interesting. I was wondering if you've seen that before, since you've seen a lot more Star Wars than I have.
That's an Inquisitor thing.
Okay.
That they carry it on their backs.
Is it like magnetic? Like they just
That's a good question.
Can they just grab it freely that you've seen?
The Inquisitors, first came out in the animated shows, so it was probably just because they're animated characters. They didn't really give any explanation, I don't think.
I say in general, even with Jedi and belt clips, we don't really see a whole lot where they actually like, oh, wait a minute, I gotta undo that clip and then pull it off their belt.
Right.
But
it's the Force. They use the Force.
Pretty much, probably.
Yeah.
Are Inquisitors Force sensitive?
Yes.
Yeah, they're former Jedi.
And then my other question was the one lady with the red lightsaber and she's got the long hair. Do we know who that is? I feel like you guys probably know, but I don't know who that is. She keeps telling Kenobi like you can't run or we're gonna get you or stuff like that in the trailer.
I think she's a new character.
Okay.
Yeah, she's one of the Inquisitors.
We're not gonna discuss it here on the news, but there has been some leaks of who she is, so I think we will definitely get her background story there. But like Tony said, the Inquisitors are former Jedi, you know, whether they were older and turned or kidnapped. We actually covered a long time ago on this channel, there was a Star Wars Dark Legends book that spoke of an orphanage where the kids were scared at night because there was this being that would haunt them and have beady yellow eyes and every now and then kidnap children in the night. And that was a whole story about the orphanage where force sensitive children would appear. They didn't know they were, but the Grand Inquisitor was the one that was coming in at night and kidnapping them away. So
okay.
And the Grand Inquisitor used to be according to, I think, Clone Wars, maybe it was confirmed in Rebels, was one of the temple guards.
Yep.
For the Jedi. Yeah, and then he realized he didn't like what the Jedi were doing. That's what.
Interesting.
Makes me wonder if Qui-Gon had survived, if they would have been really good buddies.
Maybe.
So kind of going along with the Kenobi trailer, we mentioned before that there's going to be something called Obi-Wan Kenobi Wednesdays, which is when exclusive merch that is geared towards the Kenobi series will be dropping every Wednesday for a certain amount of time. And in my opinion, they're going hard on the very, very first Wednesday because we're getting a Vader helmet that is modeled after the one from the show. We are getting a Black Series figure of Kenobi. Hopefully we can get our hands on one. But the one that's most interesting to me, I don't know, I know I've showed Sarah the picture. I don't know if you've seen the picture yet, but there is a lightsaber that is coming out of Obi-Wan Kenobi's lightsaber, and the hilt is almost like a black color as opposed to like bright and silvery. That
I did see that.
I wonder if there's anything going on there, like if there's going to be a transition period between the lightsabers and the show.
Did you notice on the trailer in the title screen they made one of the eyes his lightsaber hilt?
I did not.
It was one of the eyes in there.
The one thing I did notice,
it was the last one in Kenobi. That's what it was.
I noticed from the previous trailer and this one at the end when Disney Plus does the little swoop. It was Kenobi's the first time and Vader's the second time. At least I think it's Vader. It was red, so
yeah,
could be an Inquisitor. Don't know if we're gonna get our hands on all that merch. I would love to, but oh my goodness, that bill.
Is that something that Disney's doing, or is that like a separate thing?
Hasbro. I mean,
oh, okay.
They handle the majority of Disney stuff. It's not from Shop Disney. It's really funny. Disney does their own lightsabers different from Hasbro. In my opinion, Disney's tend to be more accurate because Hasbro can be a bit lazy with their sound chips. And I've heard that the hilts can be a bit bulky too. So I don't think Disney has released any potential Kenobi lightsaber hilts coming out. They have had a couple other ones drop, but nothing that has to do with the show necessarily that we know of, because I don't know if those characters will pop up, obviously. but yeah, every Wednesday starting next Wednesday, we will have merch dropping from that show, and we'll see how long that goes on for. Maybe we'll see some other really cool stuff. If, like, aside from Kenobi's lightsaber being awesome, one thing that has not been released that I would love to see from this show would be an Inquisitor lightsaber, because they used to have an Inquisitor lightsaber as a children's toy that actually spun. So if they could make like a high quality version of that that still spun, that would be amazing. So we'll see about that.
Cool.
Another thing that's going on with Disney Plus, I've watched most of it, but I've also seen bits and pieces talked about on Twitter. There was the Boba Fett gallery episode released. So if you don't know what gallery episodes are, at the end of each season of Star Wars, and I believe Marvel too, at least most of them.
Marvel's called Assembled.
Gotcha. It's kind of like a behind the scenes of the season. So they do like a deep dive of different aspects of the show. I think the majority of the wow factors have been covered in the two before this, because most of it, from my opinion, is how they actually film this stuff with the screens around the room. The one thing that jumped out to me that I didn't really realize is that the Rancor in Boba Fett, at times they filmed just the head. There was times where they filmed the head and the arms, and there was other times where they filmed the whole freaking thing. So it's really cool to think about that they actually had a big monstrous Rancor that they were working with. So
and that was all, well, the parts that they showed was all practical as well.
Yeah.
It wasn't like CGI and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah, that's what I meant by real practical effects.
Yeah.
Did you see the special?
Oh, well, of course I did. I've said on here before, I'm not only am I a massive fan of Star Wars, but I'm a fan of all of cinema. So all of these galleries, the Marvel Assembled stuff, like I watch all of it because I love that behind the scenes stuff. I just find it fascinating. And in fact, right now is kind of the school I work at. We're doing like the last month is kind of like they call it May term. It's like this, like kids can kind of take fun sort of extracurricular type classes if they made all their credits through the year. And one of the classes that I'm teaching is world history through film. So it's part film appreciation, part world history class. And before we got into the movies we were watching, we talked a little bit about how movies are made. And this happened to come out during the first week of that. So I actually showed the Boba Fett gallery episode to the kids. Yeah, so that was cool. Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it, regardless of my thoughts on the show. I still love watching that behind the scenes stuff. There were some very impressive things, as you pointed out, with the practical Rancor and stuff like that. One thing I did notice, though, not to be a Debbie Downer, but when who was the director for it? Rodriguez, last name Rodriguez. What's his first name?
Oh man, Robert Rodriguez.
Is it Robert Rodriguez? Okay. Well, so I have never made a movie before, and I've never been to film school, so just I don't want to pretend like I know how to make all this stuff. But when he would talk about his creative thought process going into making the show, he showed great appreciation for Star Wars, and that's all wonderful. That's great. But his ideas seemed very disjointed. Like he would be like, "Oh, wouldn't it be cool if we did this? Oh, and wouldn't it be cool if we did that? Oh, what if we did this with Boba Fett?" And he had all these ideas, but they didn't come together that well. And I think we kind of saw that in the show. It kind of reminded me of the final season of Game of Thrones. The HBO did a behind the scenes thing for how the last season was made. I think it was called like The End of Watch or something like that. And all of the crew, especially when they were being interviewed about making this season, they would always it cracked me up at one point because literally they'd be like, all right, so we're gonna film another battle sequence, and this is how we do it. And oh, okay, we're doing another scene like this. Like they just sounded over it. And it sort of reminded me of this a little bit, where everyone was kind of like, oh, let's do this, let's do that, let's do this. Oh, let's throw the Mandalorian in there for some reason. Let's talk about the Luke stuff, and like that's all that stuff is cool in parts, but it doesn't come together that great for one cohesive story. So that was kind of a rant, but still cool to learn about the stuff. It's just I could kind of see in the creative process how that was kind of reflected in the show.
Yeah, I was getting kind of a different vibe from him too. Like I'm kind of along the same lines with a handful of the other talk shows that I listen to, because Robert Rodriguez, you know, when I first think of that name, Spy Kids comes into play, and so does Machete, which is two totally different things on the spectrum. And it really made me wonder what we were going to get out of this show, knowing this stuff. The only thing that I really hoped we'd get is Danny Trejo, and we got him, so that was really cool. One thing I thought was interesting that he does with his actors and actresses, I don't know if he said it was a warm-up, but definitely to like vibe and connect with one another, is they would do like jam sessions before film.
Yeah.
So that was interesting, to say the least. He would bust out an instrument, and so would Tamura, and they would just do a little jam session, and then they get to work. Just kind of interesting, honestly.
Yeah, to develop that creative, collaborative relationship.
Yeah. I don't think you got the chance to watch the special.
No, I did not.
That's all right. Check it out on Disney Plus. It's been out a little bit now. I think it came out on May 4.
Yeah.
Like we said, at the end of every season, they dish out one of these. I am very excited to see the one with Kenobi, just to learn a little bit more and hear some from Hayden, because I feel like we've heard a lot from Ewan, but not Hayden. I didn't get to say this in the Kenobi discussion. One quick thing is that there's been talks with Hayden, and Hayden mentioned that we will see Vader in his prime in this show. So I'm very excited to see that. Quick little plug-in from that. One small story that we had from this week, which I thought was kind of interesting, and I looked into it and read up on it, and in a way, it's kind of like a carrot in front of your nose situation. In the Marvel comics, I believe it's called Han and Chewie. The headline was that we get to see Han Solo's father. And I thought, whoa, okay. I haven't really heard about him very much. So I actually looked at the comic and read the section that he was a part of, because they had the excerpt right there for me. And really, it was just, you don't see his face. It's kind of like when you see him, his face has a shadow over it. And he's just talking to Han as a kid a little bit, giving him a little bit of fatherly advice. So I felt like it was almost just to grab your attention kind of a deal. How do you feel about Disney dipping into more family ties for these characters, where in a lot of critical reviews on Solo in general, we don't need a whole lot of backstory from Solo. We love him. We appreciate him.
Excuse me. Can I take a step back for a sec and ask why this is in a Marvel comic and not a Star Wars comic?
Marvel has been creating their comics for the most part.
So it's not part of the Marvel franchise. It's just made by Marvel.
Right.
Okay.
The comic book company Marvel.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Recently, they did sign a deal with Dark Horse, so we will be seeing some from them as well. But Marvel has been handling all their comic books. So like, see right there, you guys can't see it on camera, but I'm pointing for Sarah. All those Star Wars comics say Marvel on top.
Oh, I got you. Okay.
So now you can see.
Yep. So,
You know,
my thoughts on that would be, I feel like some things are better left unsaid, maybe. We already went through his kind of backstory with the solo film, and I don't know how much further we really need to dive into that. There's so much in the Star Wars universe that we can explore, as you can see by these different shows that keep coming out. And some of them are backstories like Obi-Wan and Boba, but some of them are new, like The Mandalorian, right? And at least for me, the Bad Batch, I understand we've kind of touched on them before, but it's not so much a backstory for them necessarily, would you say?
That's the story for them, I think.
Right. So, I feel like at some point, it's almost like when you remake a film, and sometimes a remake can be good, but most of the time it's, for me anyway, you've already done this story, you're not really doing it any more justice than it already had. You kind of already, we've been here before. So understanding that going into his past is not a remake, but it's getting into things that you've kind of already closed up, if you will. I don't know that it's super necessary for me.
So do you think it's like scratching the bottom of the barrel?
Yes.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with that. The only kind of thing I'd throw in there is like it's stuff in the comic books, and it's not I'm sure there's probably a very small section of the Star Wars fandom that is buying the weekly or monthly, whatever it is, issues of the Star Wars comics because they want that extra lore and whatever. So it's whatever to me. It's just kind of a wash. It's kind of, yeah, the more you explain things, you kind of dilute it a little bit. But if you're gonna do it in some kind of fringe part of the fandom, then whatever. Sell your comics, make your money, do whatever.
Yeah, I was kind of feeling the same way. Like, kind of like you said, there's probably better things to dish out and talk about, especially, like I said, it really didn't really add to him. He was just this figure that was shadowed, and we didn't really get much of him. The excerpt was very, very small, maybe 2 or 3 pages. So
I think if that comic came out in the 80s, it might have been more impactful.
Yeah.
But now that we've had Star Wars content out the wazoo the past decade, I think people were just kind of like, nah, okay.
How old would you say Han was in this? Like 5, 10, 15?
Probably about 12.
Okay. So at
Wow,
that point,
very specific.
Well, he looked like he was reminiscent of Boba's character in episode 2. Like, he had the exact same hair, just different color.
Okay.
So the reason why I ask that is that means that he's at an age where he would know his dad. It's not like he was a little kid and he doesn't remember him anymore. So when they do the whole Han Solo, because they don't know his last name, clearly he must have known his last name if he knew this guy when he was 12. So it's just kind of weird.
This is true. Yeah.
Well, look at you. You're putting the continuity errors on blast there. Dig it.
Gotcha.
Gotcha, Disney.
It could just be that he doesn't want to remember him. That could be it too. But from the sounds of it, that comic excerpt, they had a at least friendly relationship.
Yeah, I would say so. Okay. So we're probably going to get into the heaviest bit on this news segment. There's been a lot of discussion about EA's new Star Wars game coming out. Before we get into the heavy stuff, Tony, do you want to tell us the big leak?
Was it a leak or was it an announcement? Oh, I guess it was
There's
kind
no
of a
official announcement. EA did not come out.
Yeah, it was not an official announcement. One of the people involved with it kind of spilled the beans in an interview. So at this point at least, the title for the next Jedi Fallen Order game is not even going to have Fallen Order in the title. It is going to be called Jedi Survivor, which I think makes a lot of sense given where the story left off in the first one.
Did you say Survivor? Sorry. Jeez. Sorry, I'm still recovering from the dry air of Vegas. Did you say Survivor or Survival?
Survivor.
Like
Okay.
your favorite
Like singular
reality
Yeah.
show.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. I did know about the subtitle difference. Just from the get-go, the name sounds weird to me, like Star Wars Jedi and then Fallen Order. But yeah, this is their Star Wars Jedi series is the main tagline. And then we got the second part there where we got Survivor. I'm very curious to see what happens. I'm hoping we get a solid trailer from Star Wars Celebration. It has been confirmed that we will at least see the new game. The extent, I don't know, because I still remember when they first talked about Fallen Order, all they showed was Cal Kestis with a hood and like a bar, a cantina. So hopefully we actually get something decent here where we'll get some sort of idea of what's going on. The other...
Do you know, is he the survivor it's referencing? Like, is he going to be the main character again, or do we not know that?
I would say we assume so, but
I would think so.
Okay.
I don't think
He'll at least be involved in the story.
Right. To go along with that leak, there's been a separate leak as well where they're saying that the game is going to come out in 2023. So we are not going to be seeing it most likely this year, as much as that breaks my heart. But the upside to that is that I think they said around February, March timeframe. So if that's true, then we get something really cool in the beginning of next year, as opposed to waiting for the holiday season when most of the stuff comes out. You know,
Or who knows, it could get delayed 5 times and maybe it will be the next holiday season in 2023.
Don't be a Debbie Downer. Come on.
That's not.
Well, who knows? You just gotta like input the voices in the game and it's fine.
You're
Just
right.
really-
You're right.
Yeah, that's how it works.
Hard.
Yeah. So hopefully we get that game pretty soon here. But here's the big news, the one that's been circulating the internet quite a bit lately. Talking about Fallen Order, so the very first game, there is an employee that has come out and said in the development
on Twitter.
Yes, like publicly everywhere. During the first game's development, the team wanted the main character to be an African American female. Those two main components. And someone from the top said, okay, we already got 2 African American characters in here that are big parts, and we already have Rey in the films to accommodate for the women part of it. So they shot down the idea and said, make it a guy, kind of a thing.
Not only a guy, but a white guy.
Yeah. So my thoughts on that, I don't know who, like, because there's actually, when Sarah and I were talking about this the other day, there's at least 3 African American main characters in this game. One being the Inquisitor, one being your mentor, and one being Saw Gerrera. So I don't know who they are referring to for those 2 when the person mentioned we already have 2. But for me, if we would have gotten the Inquisitor's or the Inquisitor and got her backstory somehow, you know, as a playable character, I think that would have been awesome. I don't know if they were just saying, rewrite Cal as a African American female, and then the rest of the game was the exact same, or how they were playing with that.
Kill him off and have somebody else be the survivor.
I don't know, but I feel like that was a misstep. As long as a character in Star Wars isn't just inserted for political reasons. So, for instance, one thing that jumps out for me that kind of jumbled the stories for Star Wars was, sorry, Tony, it's a Last Jedi reference.
I figured.
The reference to these animals are being mistreated, and animal rights, rah rah rah. Yes, that is definitely a subject that needs to be addressed, but doesn't need to be addressed in Star Wars. Not necessarily, in my opinion. So I don't think by them picking an African American female would have been a political move, as long as it had structure to the character, like it had a reason for being, a really cool character in the story. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
You want to go first, or do you want to?
Sure. I mean, if it's a continuation of Cal's story, I don't know why it wouldn't just be Cal. So
No, it's the first game.
Oh, you're talking about the first
Yeah.
game?
The very first game when this came up.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Tony. I misunderstood.
Oh, okay. All right. So, ever since you told me we were going to cover this topic, I've been thinking of my response quite extensively, just to make sure I say everything correctly and appropriately convey my thoughts and try not to be misinterpreted and stuff like that. So I'll try to hit every viewpoint, try to acknowledge every viewpoint, and also kind of give mine. So I do believe that any sort of story, whatever the medium is, should be character and story over heavy-handed messaging. Okay, being heavy-handed, beating you over the head with something, it is a thing in storytelling that is typically not a good thing, not looked at as a good thing. However, representation matters. I'm just going to say that. Okay, representation matters. And as far as I'm concerned, if the race or gender or anything like that is not integral to the character, then do whatever you want. I don't care. All right. My guess is the executives are sort of old school in the sense that they think, because I've heard this in entertainment news, film news, movie news, that the belief is if your lead character is not a white male, then the product will not sell as well. I think in today's day and age, that is not necessarily the case. So that is my guess of where that's coming from, why the idea was shot down. So I think it was not, I think it was kind of tone deaf. I think that was the wrong decision. If they wanted to make their main character a woman of color, then go for it. Who cares? Who cares if there's other Black characters, women? I don't care. Do whatever you think is best for you and the story and whatever. And that kind of goes double for Star Wars, because Star Wars has always been political since the very first movie. It's in the title. War is inherently political. Okay, so the title Star Wars already gives kind of tips its cap to being a political allegory. Obviously, the original trilogy is about an insurgent rebel force fighting against an oppressive totalitarian government. the prequels are an allegory for Hitler rising to power, and the sequel trilogy is whatever the heck that was. So yeah, I don't think it was the right call by the executives or whoever made the call, because representation matters. So go do what whatever they wanted to do, they should have done.
Have we seen a Star Wars game before with a non-white male lead?
Yes, we actually had one with an African American female lead, and it was in my opinion, a very good one. That was Star Wars Battlefront 2.
Mhm.
Iden Urso.
Yep.
Tripping up the last name.
So that's on the cover. She's got her helmet on, right? Is that the same character, or is it somebody else?
Yes.
Does she keep her helmet on the whole time?
No.
Okay.
She keeps her helmet on for maybe 2 or 3 missions ish.
Mhm.
I'm just kind of curious because if we're talking about representation and it's somebody who would have their helmet on the whole time, well, then it doesn't matter what color they are because you can't see it anyway. That's interesting. I would probably concur with the bulk of the group census here. I don't really have too much to add other than just curious if we've done that before. So
yeah, there's a good chunk of marketing too that was with her and her helmet off as well. So, EA's done it before. Like you said, I don't know why it's an issue now. Yeah. If anything, they don't necessarily have to pick a human character either. So
it could have been Guido, one of his species.
Yeah, could have been a Rhodian. Like if
could have been a droid.
If it was that much of an issue, we could have had something that probably hasn't been done very much in Star Wars games in general, and that's just have a completely different species be the main character. As far as I can remember, very, very little has that. I know the EA game Squadrons, you can like customize your character to different species and stuff, but as far as you are playing as this character and this character only, not very many.
I do think it's cool if they picked a redhead. That's unusual.
A little different. I think that's probably as much as it'll stretch.
Yeah.
That's all I meant by it. It was just that I thought it was cool. It was, not somebody blonde-haired, blue-eyed, brown-haired, whatever.
Yeah. So, that I don't know what's really gonna come of that news. Obviously it's something that we don't want to happen in game development or really any situation that happens. I guess we'll see in the coming weeks if anything really comes out of it. It makes me wonder if it may hit the new game sales, but at the same time, I feel like this news story, like it was really popular when it first came out, and now it's hushed. I don't see it anywhere. So, yeah, we'll have to see what comes out of that.
I think it'll just continue to be bad PR for EA because EA has not been a fan favorite for like several years now.
Ever since they got the contract.
Well, I think ever since the microtransactions in Battlefront 2, I think that's where it kind of started. And then they started this trend of heavily microtransactioning their games and releasing uncompleted games where you have to buy DLC to play the rest of it and all that stuff.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting because the Star Wars community is the one that told EA no more. Sports haven't done a thing. So really good on the Star Wars community that pushed back. And now we don't have to worry about that anymore in Star Wars video games from EA. So hopefully other publishers will pay attention to that as well.
Yeah, forget the people who like sports games.
I said I enjoy them, but I think I don't want to get too off topic, but there's a right way and a wrong way, in my opinion, to do it. And the way that EA does it the wrong way. Because basically you have to do an incredible amount of work just to get one good player. So
Oh, yeah.
unless you pay for it.
Right.
Sarah, you had a story for us.
Yeah, let's end on a positive.
I I recently saw on social media that they started filming Ahsoka, and they had a picture of a director's chair with the Ahsoka logo on it. So I thought that was pretty cool that they started filming for that show. Do we know when that show's coming out? Projected?
I would assume next year, just because we're supposed to be getting Mando this year as well, whether it's the end of the year or the summer leak that Giancarlo gave us all. I think we're supposed to still get Bad Batch season 2. We'll probably learn more about that in 2 weeks. It's really nice to be able to actually say that it's coming in 2 weeks. And I don't know how much credibility is behind it, but there's also been talk of Vision season 2. So
yeah, I've heard that.
I think it'll be a next year thing. 'Cause I don't know what is really slated for next year yet. At least I can't think of it off the top of my head. So that would definitely be probably a banger to have in 2023. I don't think it was too long ago that Kenobi wrapped production. So
I would sure hope so.
well, what I'm saying is, between
post-production?
Yeah.
Okay.
Between the end of filming Ahsoka and post-production, how much time that actually takes. Again, Tony's probably our expert in that regard. Because, for me, when I hear, oh, we're done filming, it's like, okay, how long you got to be on that computer to, get this thing up and going?
It all depends.
So yeah, I think that about wraps it up for us today. We covered a good handful of stories for you that happened in the last 3 weeks. Remember, next weekend, we will be talking about our most anticipated things for Star Wars Celebration. We'll probably each have a couple of them to talk about, and then we'll all talk about those as a group to get you guys ready on that hype train for the following week. Remember, Star Wars Celebration actually starts on a Thursday. So a week from Thursday is when it starts, and then it goes through the weekend. And we're supposed to have a lot of goodies coming from it. So stay tuned for that. Otherwise, in general, make sure to turn your notifications. That way you hear more of our discussions in the future. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Drops a like if you like this video, and drops a comment letting us know your thoughts on the news that we covered, or any news that you thought was interesting that was not featured on this episode. And then, as always, everybody, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.